turn off my phone so it doesn't bug us.
Facebook, welcome. This is Jim Blythe and Chuck Wright. We are the Veterans Impact Show, and we're here to continue the mission, Charlie Mike, of bringing this nation together and showcasing men and women who have done exceptional service. Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where we continue the mission of highlighting veterans and service organizations who continue to serve our community and our nation. We're brought to you by Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Don't worry, retire happy. Welcome aboard. Hey, this is Jim Blythe and Chuck Wright. I'm Navy, he's Marine. We're all in the same department, aren't we? Or are we the
I'm part of the Marine Corps. I'm part of the men's department.
Hey, Chuck, I'm really excited because you invited me some time ago to the dedication of the memorial up in Frisco.
The Gold Star Family Memorial.
And that was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. And by the way, I want to mention this. You introduced me to a wonderful lady when we did Wreaths Across America, and we interviewed her.
Yep.
And she had lost her son, and that was one of the most.
Mary Corsi Bush.
Yeah,
absolutely. One of the big part of our committee.
And one of the things I want people to know is your dedication to these kinds of projects that bring our nation together.
Very much so. It was a culmination of a lot of work by a lot of people. As I have. Chad and I have talked about this a few times, and we're going to get into this. I don't know why I bothered to write a script because Jim doesn't read it anyway.
Hey,
we're going to go in a little bit of a different direction. But one of the things that I want to do right quick, and the first thing I want to do is I want to thank Nathaniel Smith from Send Podcasting. He is the technical genius. He is the man who makes the magic work. He has gotten us over to StreamYard and significantly upgraded the quality of the show. So we appreciate him.
And Diane is at home doing this because we've got her mother's memorial service.
Yep, there
today.
we go. And we'll be, my wife and I'll be there. But what I'd like to do, I want to introduce Woody Williams, Herschel Woody Williams. He was America's last surviving Medal of Honor recipient. And to really tell the story, Woody is critical to this, and I am actually honored to say, and there's a picture we're going to throw up. We're trying to throw a picture up right now. There we go. Woody receiving the Medal of Honor from President Harry S. Truman. I actually got to be a little bit, and I should say this, Woody was everybody's grandfather. He was that wonderful man with great words of wisdom. I don't know anybody who walked a better walk than Woody did, and he gave so much back. And toss that other picture up. This is at the Gold Star, our dedication. I didn't know this was coming. You'll notice that red, white, and blue is hanging around my neck. Technically, I'm an honorary board member. I've never been invited to a meeting, but that's okay. I'm kidding about that. But to set this story up, this is the man who created this. And this picture actually put my wife in tears. She said, I knew Woody knew who you were, but I could tell you guys were genuinely friends. And if Woody had 10,000 friends, he had 100,000 friends. He was just an absolutely wonderful man. I can't say enough about him, so I will stop. Because one of the things that I want to introduce, he created a foundation, and to talk about that foundation is his actual grandson, the executive director. I wanted to call you president, but it's executive director, is my friend Chad Graham. And Chad, welcome to the show.
Good morning, gentlemen. It's an honor to be here with you, and just really appreciate the opportunity to visit this morning.
Yeah, you've created and built and continue to grow. Dive in. What is the mission of the Woody Williams Foundation? And just, we're free flowing here. Easy for me to say. Not enough Dunkin' Donuts coffee. But tell us about the mission. Tell us what you're trying to accomplish. Give us the 20,000 foot view, and then let's bring it down to helicopter level.
Absolutely. Well, we as a foundation really are focused on our mission to honor, recognize, and serve our Gold Star families and to really carry on the legacy of their loved ones that paid that ultimate sacrifice. That's our focus every day. And how we approach that mission is through 3 programs, which is our Gold Star Families Memorial Monuments, which we'll get a little deeper into, our outreach programs, and our education scholarship programs. And that really stemmed from way back when. This year, on what would have been my grandfather's 100th birthday, this October 2nd, we will celebrate 10 years since the first monument was established.
Wow.
And that was really the impetus of all of our mission, and what our focus is 10 years plus a little. Woody was thinking about what we had as a nation not appropriately done in honor of our Gold Star families. They are a segment of our society that we just forgot. And it certainly wasn't anything deliberate. It was just something that we all could never do enough to honor these folks and to honor their loved ones, but nothing had ever been done on a national scale.
So let me inject right quick question. Chad, would you define, because not all of our listeners know the difference between Gold Star and Blue Star families. Would you define that for us?
Absolutely. So as an organization, we serve families who've lost someone in military service. And so when you see that emblazoned on the side of the monument, just like the one that Chuck was speaking to earlier there in Frisco, Texas, and it's accompanied by another 120 others across the country and another 70 in progress. When you see that Gold Star Families Memorial Monument, it says a tribute to Gold Star families and relatives who have sacrificed a loved one for our freedom. And that's really what a Gold Star family is. And that's who we serve as an organization. And Chuck, that's really when we get down to the essence of how this started and how my grandfather conceptualized what we do and how we do it. We look years ago, and he loved to tell this story, and you can visualize it. He said, I was speaking to a group of a bunch of white-haired people, a bunch of senior citizens. He said, of them, I was one. And he was in a VFW hall, and he's talking about patriotism and just really talking about being an American that day. Mm-hmm. And at the end of his talk, he was gathering all his things up, and he could hear the footsteps approaching him. And he turned around to see a man in tears, visibly moved. And he asked if he could do something for him. He said, can I help you? Is there something I can do for you? And the man just was silent and sat down and just was caught up in his emotion. So my granddad said he continued to gather his things up and put his things away in his briefcase and turned around and went to the man. And the man stood up and said, Woody, Dad's cry too. And at that moment, it was that tap on the shoulder, and I do believe it's divine, that my granddad said, we've got to do something for the families of those who've paid the ultimate sacrifice in military service. We have to do something for the entire family. Mm-hmm. And that night, of course, we're talking about a man in his mid to late 80s at the time. He's driving 2.5 hours in the middle of the night back to his home in rural West Virginia. And he stopped at the state capitol there in Charleston, West Virginia. He went to the war memorial. That on that memorial, there are names of all those West Virginians who'd given their life. And he spent some time there. And that night, he went to sleep, and like a lightning bolt, as he described it, in the middle of the night, he woke up and he conceptualized and drew that very first design of the Gold Star Families Memorial Monument. And so it was that interaction with that Gold Star father, that father who sacrificed his son, that really impressed upon him to design something for all of these families. And that was the goal at that time. The goal was to have this single monument in West Virginia. And that came to fruition. And once he saw, once all of us saw, once the community saw the impact that had on Gold Star families, we saw a community come together and rally around that. We knew that we were just getting started, and we had a whole lot more work to do.
Yeah. That's incredible. I threw the picture of our monument up, and we did something a little bit different. And in fact, the comment that as Woody and I were standing there talking, he asked me, you guys, where'd you come up with the idea for the statue? So you'll notice that the monuments have the silhouette of a military person saluting. We took whatever a cookie cutter would be in granite. This is absolutely beautiful granite. And I apologize, in this picture, it was taken in March, and the city just planted last week flowers. You can see we have flower beds around it, but all of the monuments are the same. We did something a little bit different. I know Chad's sitting here going, yeah, you were different. I might have been his biggest pain in the backside, but it really was. The beauty of it is this was very much. And we had 4 Gold Star families that were our key committee members and they were the ones who spoke. They talked about having the mayor speak, and then that was like, this is about the Gold Star families. But we dedicated that statue to Woody, basically returning the salute. And you can't see it from here, but we lined it up so that he is also saluting the American flag that flies over our Frisco's Veteran Memorial. And there's a tree in the background, and we've actually planted 4 of those trees with the names of the people that the monument was, that were on our committee, that we dedicated the monument directly to, although it is to all Gold Star families. And there are 4 trees that surround the monument. You can see it's on a semicircle. And again, they're all the same that way. And some of them have benches and some of them don't. Right after ours was done, you guys went up to Idaho, I believe it was, to dedicate a monument. And they took pictures of it as the sun was setting over I think it's the Cascades there. I don't think it's the Rockies. And I was jealous because it was like, oh my gosh, that is such an even more beautiful setting than ours. But these are incredible. These are absolutely incredible. The day that Woody was here, he left to go down to Ennis, Texas. They dedicated another monument there. This is just a great program. So let's talk a little bit about how the Gold Star Monument Program is expanding. And then we'll jump into, and I really want to hear more about the other programs, because this is not just a monument program.
Absolutely. And I think you point out something about the monument program that is so important. Frisco, Texas, and you mentioned Pocatello, Idaho. Each of these communities are unique and beautiful. And the monument, though consistent in its design, really speaks to that community. Because we have families, we have Gold Star families in each and every community. That's a question we get often: is does our community have those who've given one of their own for all of us and our freedom? And the answer is yes. There are Gold Star families in communities all across the country, and we all have a responsibility to them. So when you look at the curve of that monument, you need to think of it in a way that we as a community need to embrace these families. And it is our responsibility to support them as they carry on the legacy. That one that stepped forward and raised their hand and gave their life for our freedom came from that family. Yep. And it's up to all of us as communities, and much like there in Frisco, community coming together to demonstrate that to Gold Star families. And so as the monument has grown, it's really because each community needs this monument. And, it's grown very quickly.
Chad and Chuck, one of the things I found out from what you were talking about, Chuck, is the collaboration between the city, the politicians, the Parks Department, the community, because you guys raised all the money. These things are not cheap. And that black marble is absolutely spectacular.
That it is. And it is the single most expensive part of everything, but it's okay, because it's beautiful, and it was a labor of love for us. But Chad, you've hit on something, and Jim and I talk about it often on the show. It's about bringing the community together. It is about, and the words are kind of escaping me a little bit, but it is about helping educate the public on the incredible sacrifices that particularly our Gold Star families bring together. And our friend Terry Burgess has a book, When a Blue Star Turns Gold, because he's gone through this as well.
Well, Chuck, anytime you have a collaborative effort, but people are working together for a common goal, and when that goal has so much meaning, it has an impact on everybody it touches. It brings everybody together, and that's a good thing, to bring people together.
Yeah.
I tell you what we're going to do is we're going to take a break to hear from all of our sponsors. This is Jim Blythe, U.S. Navy veteran, and Chuck Wright, U.S. Marine Corps, and we're talking with the great Woody Williams' grandson. We'll be right back.
No grades.
Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. Hey, guys, I want to inject something real quick that you guys may or may not know. There is actually a USS Woody Williams.
Yes.
And it is a Navy ship. It's a littoral ship, isn't it, Chuck?
Yes.
And it's generally occupied and used by the Marines alongside the Navy, correct?
Well, it's used as a forward base. It is the ESB-4, and quite appropriately, that is known as the Chesty Puller class. And for those who don't know, most consider Chesty Puller the consummate Marine. 5 Navy crosses in his very impressive career. So it's appropriate. But yes, Chad was there at the dedication of the ESB-4. There it is. Wonderful.
There it is.
Pulled that up.
It
is literally a floating base.
My friend Rex King was there, and he said that was a very, very cold day. It was tough. But that's the dedication that Woody had to do this. What Chuck has talked about, what Rex has talked about, what I saw is truly amazing. But also, I've heard stories, and if you could repeat some of those, about it helped families have closure. It helped families come together and be able to mourn their loss and understand their loss.
Absolutely. The thing, and you mentioned the ship, and it's something that if you had any time that you got to spend with Woody, which we always say to people, we wish that we could have shared him with everyone, because I really believe that he had a God-given talent and a gift to touch people's heart. And it was because he was so genuine and so heartfelt, and that he lived every day with a purpose, and that purpose was serving others. And so when even when the ship, when it was first christened, and then when the commissioning day that you guys were mentioning, when it was a little chilly there in Norfolk, Virginia, you saw a beyond humility expressed from Woody. Here's a man who wears our nation's highest medal for valor. And to him, even in those days when they're dedicating the USS Herschel Woody Williams, he's the first one to say, it's not about me. And one of the things that he pressed upon anyone that he had, if he had time to speak to someone about it, is that medal that he wore, he did not wear for himself. He did not wear for the actions that he did there on Iwo Jima back in 1945. He wore it for those Marines that didn't get to come home. And obviously, in dedicating the last portion of his life to Gold Star families, it was really symbolic of telling the story of those sacrifices. And that's why he wore the medal. And it's interesting. We, of course, over the years and the paths of people that we've crossed and being introduced to people through my granddad, I'll tell you, and Chuck, you'll appreciate this. There's a general that we lost him this last year. He was the oldest living Marine Corps general, General Van Stockham, lived in my little county here in Kentucky. But he had been the XO under, General Vandegrift, who was later the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and a Medal of Honor recipient from Guadalcanal. So the day that Woody was presented the medal by Harry S. Truman, part of kind of the events of the day included Woody taking a trip to meet A.A. Vandegrift, the Commandant of the United States Marine Corps. And as my granddad would tell it, there's the iconic photo that y'all shared of Truman with his hand on my granddad's shoulder, with that little lip puckered out as he had presented the medal to him. Papaw said that he was pretty sure that Truman had his hand on him to keep him on the ground. He said his knees were just gyrating. And he said the president was keeping him on the ground. He said the feelings of the day were overwhelming, to say the least. He said, but he was much, I guess, more nervous or Scared is a word that he used when he stood in front of the Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Vandegrift, and him being a recipient and telling a young Woody Williams who had just received that medal, he looked him in the eye and he said, "That medal does not belong to you. It belongs to those Marines that did not make it home. And don't you ever do anything to tarnish that medal." And that impressed upon him the responsibility to wear that medal in honor of those who had laid down their life, who did not get to make it home. And of course, dedicating his life to their family. I think it's a really important part of his legacy and the legacy that we carry on through the work that we do here at the foundation.
This is amazing. We're talking with Chad Graham, the CEO of the Woody Williams Foundation. Chuck, thank you for bringing this aboard. We're going to continue the mission and continue the conversation after these words from all of our partners. I need to do a little bit of legal stuff. I'm with Fairway. My NMLS number is 311548, and our corporate one is 2289. That makes all the lawyers happy. So now let's take that break and let our sponsors be happy. This is our Veterans Impact Show, the Veterans Impact Show that you and I started in 2015. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show, and thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation.
So I appreciate the Facebook followers for hanging in there with us. Welcome back to our listeners literally around the nation. As we have expanded now, are going out national. We are with Chad Graham, who is the executive director of the Woody Williams Foundation. We've been telling Woody Williams stories. And Chad, I'm going to throw two things at you. Woody had a personal motto that I have embraced as my own now, and I wanted you to share that, but I also wanted you to talk about the Woody Williams Foundation's moving on and expanding what they're doing. They're growing the operation, and let's spend this next segment talking about that.
Absolutely. Several years ago, we were in Cleveland. As we traveled through the city, we were given two police officers that were Woody security throughout the week, one of which, one was Navy and one was Marine Corps. So very much like our host today, Jim and Chuck, you guys can appreciate that. And the Marine police officer said to Woody, what keeps you going? You know, at the time he was 93. What keeps you motivated? And his answer, genuinely and just very straightforward and in his very special way, the cause is greater than I. And those words, very simple, very pointed, that cause is Gold Star Families. And it's one of those things that Woody embraced. It's something that as a kid, I can remember we had a horse farm and that was the family business. And as we'd ride throughout the countryside and we'd pass a beautiful farm or, you know, something that would catch your eye as a kid, he'd point to it and say, son, you know, the reason that we can have those things, the reason that we can have the freedoms and the wonderful, beautiful nation that we have is because someone gave their life for it. And so we need to remember that. And that was really what he lived by. The cause is greater than I. And that is that cause. And of course, with these families that we serve, as we mentioned earlier in the show, the growth of the monument program now with 121 locations complete, another 70 in process in all 50 states and Guam, started with one. And it started with someone saying, someone should do something about that. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, you step forward because you can be that somebody. And I think that was that seed planted by Woody. And like I said, it's not that these monuments have grown out of they've grown out of a lot of hard work. They've grown out of a lot of people coming together for a common goal and for that cause that is greater than any of us. But to see that grow, the reason is because it does bring people together. And it gives our communities the opportunity to express and recognize these Gold Star families, to express that gratitude and make sure that we carry that on. That is the very essence of who we are as a country. Yeah. And to see that grow in now 10 years, to have 121 locations, it's something that even in the last week of my grandfather's life that we spoke to very often, that we never would have imagined it would grow as much as it has. And it's because that cause is so important. But the thing that we visualize at this map behind me, you can't see there's little teeny pins everywhere that we have monuments and where we have projects ongoing, we had another realization as we really focused on that motto, the cause is greater than I. Live it, walk it, and really think about what that means. So it's not building a monument, it's building and strengthening that community. And as you establish these little forward operating bases all over the place, you have to think about the space in between. Right. And you have to think about the families that are in between all these locations. So that realization to us that has now become the next phase of what we're doing as a foundation is connecting those dots and to use our outreach program to make sure that we're reaching out into communities, getting Gold Star families to come together and strengthen their own. We have families literally that are from the same town or county that have never met one another. And they have that unique loss, that unique sacrifice they have made. And there's nothing more powerful than getting these families together with one another so they can support one another, so they can remember their loved ones, because only they know what that loss means. Mm-hmm. And as you take a step back from that, I think the monument kind of tells the story of this as well. What started as this single monument project grew into over 100. Well, now what do we do with that? It's like building. It's kind of the field of dreams. You build it, they will come. Now that you have that monument, just like the one you showed a picture of earlier, Chuck, that you worked on there in Frisco and led the charge with. Now, what do you do with it? You've built the monument, and that's really the beginning. So it becomes, it gets sewn into the fabric. It changes the culture of a community because it becomes this place of permanence that will help us remember. It'll become something that, kids, in terms of educating, you can take our youth there and point to it and say, do you know what a Gold Star family is? Do you know why you have the freedoms that you have? And as you look at that silhouette and you think of all of the sacrifices that have been made, but when you think about what that represents, you think of that one single silhouette of the saluting service member, you think of that solitary sacrifice that is in the name of so many. It's for all freedom. And as you zoom out, you have these Gold Star families together. Well, then you have the community coming together to support them. I think the other powerful thing is not only cranking up the awareness in these communities, but getting Gold Star families together with veterans, because veterans see in these families the brothers and sisters that they lost. And likewise, these families see their loved one in these veterans, because that bond of service is something that is so deeply sewn into who y'all are, who's in the fabric of everyone who served this nation. And it's so important to those families because that relationship, it's something that impacts the whole community. So then you see civilians like myself get involved and see and witness that impact. It's something that is so unique and so important for us, and a message that needs carried forward. So that's really what's helped not only the monument projects grow, and like I said, you're talking about thousands of people who've come together for this common goal. These days, we need things like that in our communities.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt.
We are spending too much time trying to figure out what divides us instead of what unites us. And I'll go a bit political and say that the civil rights movement never happens if it wasn't for men and women of all colors serving together in World War II with Woody, with the other 6 or 7 million veterans that came out of World War II. I don't remember the exact number now, but it was a lot. And that was a huge step, in my opinion.
Chuck, when I grew up, now you grew up in a military family. Yep. When I grew up, my grandfather was career military. My father was a chief petty officer during the Navy. He was a radioman who got the message about Pearl Harbor. My Uncle Jimmy was a B-17 pilot who was a POW in Germany. My Uncle Bill was at our Uncle John was at Bastogne. Everybody in the family would get together and talk. Today's families have so few veterans in them. Today's families don't know what it is to serve in the honor.
And that's very much to Chad's point that he was just making. This is something that can connect the dots, to use his term, but it can be a gathering place for the community to help understand the sacrifices that others made and to develop an appreciation for it. And that we are one nation under God.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yep. And there's, that's just the way it is. It hasn't always been perfect, but we have always worked to make that perfect. And we've kind of gone off on a little bit of a political slant, but it's a little bit of a part of the mission of the show is to connect our veterans who have transitioned with our civilians. Chad, this isn't the only thing that the foundation is doing. Talk a little bit about the scholarship programs.
Absolutely. So those lessons that we continue to learn, of course, all of us that operate in any kind of volunteer space or in the nonprofit space, I always make the joke that the day that you don't learn something that's the day to be scared, because you learn something every day.
Right.
And some of those lessons that have come is that there are gaps in terms of resources available and services available for our Gold Star family members outside of what they might be eligible for in terms of government educational benefits. There are these little gaps and pieces that the last thing that these family members should have to worry about is paying for an education. So the way that we have built our scholarship program, and it's just really started to take off the last couple of years, is to address those gaps. So not only could it be for a student trying to get their 4-year college degree, they might be pursuing a certification or trade, for a trade school career, or they might be going back to get an advanced degree that can really have a big impact on these families. If you can visualize in your head a family that has experienced that loss, it's a shockwave. It goes throughout the family. And it's not something that, there's a Gold Star son that I talked to the other day, his father was killed in World War II. He is still a Gold Star son. He is a man that has some years on me, but that's still his father, and that loss is still there. So regardless of where these families are in their life, if there's something that we can do to help them with their education, that's really how we built the scholarship program, and we're excited about it. It continues to grow. We'd like to see more support for that program, because we have family members, once again, that may have some of those benefits. And tutoring is another place. We have some of these kids, these Gold Star kids, that can really benefit from that extra help in their education. And something that I think, when we first began the foundation, before we built the first monument, education, that was one of the things we wanted to focus on. And it took us a while to get it stood up as a part of what we do. But once again, once you build that monument and then you've identified and you've brought Gold Star families together, then we're able to connect them to resources. And I think that's a really important part of, once again, you build the monument, then you start to build outreach programming, whether that's bringing Gold Star families to a ball game and recognizing them and saying their loved one's name, something that is hugely, hugely important that I'd love to dive into as a part of our conversation today, saying those names. But once you get those families and you've talked with them, I truly believe, and it's something that we focus on here at the foundation. If you want to serve someone, ask them what they need.
Yep.
We can all assume what someone needs. We can and have the best of intention, but until we ask these Gold Star families, how best can we serve you? What are the things that you need? How can we best honor your loved one? We don't really know. And so some of that feedback has been, number one, there are gaps in educational benefits that need to be addressed. And then number two, it's really the community getting comfortable enough coming together to talk to these families and do something as simple as say their loved one's name. So a lot of our outreach programming that we've built is really centered around, once again, activating communities that we've already been in building a monument to bring families together, but then pair them. Jim, you brought it up. We have folks that may not have a military background in their family, and they may not be aware of the term, to the top of the show, what the term Gold Star means. And so how do we educate? So to have these public outreach programs, I think of one story in particular where at a ball game, 2 little boys, about 10 years old, this is last summer, we had just lost Woody. It was a very emotional time for us here as a family and as a foundation. And so when those times come, I do believe that the good Lord puts things in your path to reaffirm your path. And we're standing there at this ball game at Gold Star Family Day at the ballpark, one of our events that we do annually here in Louisville, Kentucky, with our minor league team, the Louisville Bats. And these two little boys are standing at the ball game, and the one little boy has a lanyard on that he's proudly wearing that identifies him as a Gold Star family member. We honored their loved ones, and we said their loved one's name as a part of the program that day with the ball game. They threw out the first pitch. They helped sing the anthem. We got these families involved. And so then people in the stadium started saying, oh, wow. Oh, now they're understanding and putting the pieces together that these are the families of those who have sacrificed their life so that we can all do things like sit at a ball game and enjoy baseball on a Sunday afternoon. So these two little boys come together, and the little boy points down and he said, what's that? And he said, well, I'm a Gold Star son. And he goes, well, what's that? And he said, my daddy died in Afghanistan. And he said, why? And he said, he was in the Army. And you saw these two little boys connect. And then I saw the one young man grab the Gold Star son and pull him over and introduce him to his mother and tell the story of this child's father and of their family's sacrifice and of the ultimate sacrifice of his father. Something that is so powerful and so moving, and that's part of why we do what we do.
Good question.
I got to tell you, we need to find out, how do you apply for the scholarship? Where do you go? Do you go to the website?
Yes, sir. You can go to our website, woodywilliams.org, and our email is contact@woodywilliams.org. Any of those questions about our scholarship program or any of our programming, website or that email address.
Let me tell you, I serve with the Association of the United States Army as well as Navy League, and we have scholarships. Those scholarships mean so much to these young men and women, family members. It's a huge, huge leg up. Even if it's not a full ride scholarship, it means the world to them. We want you to go. You can also go to Woody Williams and donate money. So, Chuck, let's come back in just a second. The Veterans Impact Show is us. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. And thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. Hey, Chad, thank you for the last 60 seconds worth of thoughts. And let's bring this show back into the dock. I got to tell you, what you're doing is so fantastic. And what you're doing means so much to America, and people need to learn more. So tell us a little bit more of your final thoughts on this.
I think that people can get involved with what we're doing anywhere that they're, regardless of where they're at in the nation. There's the possibility that they're pretty close to one of our monument locations, and a possibility that they're close to maybe one of our outreach locations. And so they can get a hold of us, go to our website, woodywilliams.org. They can email us at contact@woodywilliams.org. They can call us toll free, 888-839-7190, and we'll connect them and to help us complete our mission, because we cannot do it. One of the things that and once again, it's something that Woody sewed into the fabric of who we are. There are very few things in this life that we can do alone. It is only because of the support and generosity of others that we can accomplish our goals. And so we cannot do what we do without all your listeners coming together and helping us do it. You know, whether it's our Carry the Load team, our outreach events with things like Gold Star Family Day at the ballpark. We've got a new initiative called Operation Caretaker to help basically think of adopting these monuments to make sure that they're cared for. You know, you think about these families going to these monuments, they need to be in tip-top shape. And that's another place where our community can plug in. We've got plenty of opportunities for sweat equity to be a part of serving these families. And certainly the generosity and donations is something that we survive. And that's the only way that we can thrive in terms of our mission as well.
Hey, you like gardening? Join the team. But most of all, people call me up all the time or talk to me and they say, hey, Jim, I want to get involved. I want to give money. I want to be able to support veterans. One of the things that I have learned in the last year or so from Chuck and about the Woody Williams, this foundation does so much more than just support veterans. This foundation is reuniting America. And I think it's important that we donate and we participate and we be a part of it.
Absolutely. Chad, cannot thank you enough. As I warned you, the show goes by much faster than you think it's going to. We could do another entire show talking about the Woody Williams Foundation. So thank you for being on. Appreciate your friendship over the years. I am so honored to be a very small part of the Woody Williams extended family of probably 250,000 strong at least. Wanted to introduce and remind everybody next week, our guest is going to be Chief Petty Officer Benito Olson, and he runs the Patriot Dog Training Program. So we're going to learn. The show is going to go to the dogs next week.
Oh, we've done that before, and I got to tell you, it is so fabulous. But I think we're also going to be talking about other programs and other things. There's a golf tournament coming up we want to support that you run.
You just ignore that script I write.
I know. When I get inspired, you better watch out. But it's really important that we get all of our veterans brothers to plug in.
The more we can't bring the ship into the dock with a prayer.
Let's do it.
Because you're running out of time.
Let's do it.
Can I interject a
challenge? Go ahead.
Really quick. I'd be remiss if I didn't make a challenge to all our listeners today. If you don't know a Gold Star family member, you can get on the computer. You can go to our wall of remembrance, and my challenge is learn the name of one of those who's made that ultimate sacrifice, and go tell someone that name and say their name out loud. That act of kindness and devotion will mean so much to our families, and as long as we say their name, they shall not perish.
That is absolutely true.
Lord God, we come to you today with this wonderful information that we've learned, and we say thank you for all you have done for us. We say thank you for our veterans who have served. We say thank you for those men and women who gave the last ounce, who gave it all, the Gold Star families as well, and all that they have endured and done. So God, we thank you so much. We thank you also for putting a hedge of protection around our active duty military, our first responders, as they protect us throughout the world. Thank you, God, and help us to bring this nation back together. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And I should mention that for 30 years, Woody Williams was the chaplain of the Medal of Honor Society. As I said, this is a man who walked the walk. Chad, thank you so much for being on. This has been great.
And Chuck, thanks for bringing this on board. This is a great program.
You're not allowed to use great.
I don't
That's
care.
3 times you've used it.
I don't care.
You are banned from using
that
great.
Good.
Appreciate you guys having us on. Honored to be on here.
Thank you, Chad. Have a great day. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Charlie, Mike, continue the mission.
Absolutely. We'll be back next week. So tune in, join in, and share in, and be a part of the Veterans Impact Show.